What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. It's Kyle Smith, Arizona drummer here, and welcome to Behind the Kit episode 6. Today's guest is Nate Morton. You might know him from playing with Cher, from playing with Paul Stanley, but also from playing in front of millions and millions of all of you on The Voice. He is the drummer for The Voice. We have so much fun in this interview. We laugh, we joke with each other, we get philosophical, and so much more, guys. You do not want to miss this one. But before we start the video, don't forget, we have merch. We have Behind the Kit shirts, we have Behind the Kit hats, we have AZD hats, we have stuff for men, for women, for kids, we have shorts, we have mugs, we have a little bit of everything for everyone. Please consider supporting the channel by clicking on the store down in my description here to go check out some of the merchandise we have. Dollars spent there come right back to the channel so we can make sure we can continue to build and provide the best quality content for each and every one of you. And now also, if you already have all the merchandise on the website, consider subscribing to Patreon. We have 2 different levels of membership, a $5 and a $10. The $5 is our snare drum member, the $10 are drum set member, and within each of those you get awesome perks like behind the scenes content, early releases, name shoutouts, and so much more. Now I'll stop talking, but please consider hitting the links down in my bio to check out the merch, to check out the Patreon, as well as my Instagram and all the other things so you can stay up to date on all things Arizona drummer, Behind the Kit, and so much more. So with that being said, welcome to Behind the Kit episode 6 with Mr. Nate Morton. Hello everybody, this is Kyle Smith, Arizona drummer here, and I am joined by the one, the only, Nate Morton. Welcome to the channel.
You just reminded me there's a comedian, and his name is, well, he's no longer, I don't know if he's still active or not, but his name was A. Whitney Brown. And he would always introduce himself, and he would say, "Hey everyone, I am A. Whitney Brown. One day I hope to be the Whitney Brown." So you just reminded me of that when you said the one and only. Because I'm not the one and only. There's a bunch. There's a,
That's true.
I've Googled myself. I have no, whatever about that. I have no problems with that. There's a guy who was a wide receiver at Wake Forest. For a while, there was a Nate Morton. There's a bodybuilder, Nate Morton. But, I don't know, probably some more. But anyway, I'm the Nate Morton that you got right now. So you're
That's right.
Hey, and I'll tell you this, I'm Kyle Smith. There's like 2 of us in this same neighborhood. You know, that's gonna be the most common name out there. So I'm with you. But what I will say, Nate, is I'm incredibly excited for this. You have been a massive inspiration on me. I've watched all your videos. You know, obviously I've watched The Voice, your consistency, your groove, and the range. I mean, you got to play everything on The Voice. It's something I've admired for years. Coming up when I was a younger drummer, it was all the heavy metal, fast, play as fast as you can, do the crazy licks, all that stuff. And then as I've kind of come back to the instrument after, we talked a little bit about this, kind of taking a break for a few years, raising my daughter, having a family. I've come back to it with a completely different approach, much more mature, much more focused on timing, pocket, groove, all of those things. We'll get into it. But what I want to make sure I acknowledge is people might not realize this that are listening, but you have been in more homes than most drummers ever will be, night after night, and that is a wild influence.
Would you like me to speak to that briefly, Kyle?
Absolutely, yes.
So it's funny, I've been very fortunate to do a handful of TV shows, some of which have been more successful than others, The Voice being by far the most successful. But at one point in 2005, 2006, I did a show called Rockstar, and it was on CBS for a couple of seasons. And I remember someone emailing me, and they were very nice, and they said, I enjoy your playing, and so on and so forth, and I'm reading it, and then it's this very thoughtful, very nice, kind, complimentary email, and then they end it by saying, "And don't forget, a world of drummers are counting on you," or something like that. Like, the world of drummers. That's it. The world of drummers is counting on you. And I went, oh my God. Like, so I don't really think about it. I really don't. I don't think about it when I'm playing drums. I said to someone recently that I'm really bad at being in the moment. I'm always thinking of the next thing or the next opportunity or the next gig or the recording I have to do tomorrow or a song I've got to learn, whatever it is, right? And when I'm playing drums, that's about the only time that I'm actually, quote unquote, in the moment. That's about it. And it's not a good thing. I'm not saying that is a good thing, but I am saying that drumming is my one refuge, if you will, my one refuge where all I'm thinking about is exactly what I'm doing in exactly that moment. And so while it is true, I mean, the show is on and, allegedly millions of people watch it and so on, I don't think about that ever.
Yeah.
I don't think about that at all.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. Like, for me, drums has been my safe place. It's where I can express myself. I like to think of drums and music as a language. It's a language that we're fluent in. We have different dialects, different accents, but we're all fluent in it. We can share it with each other. It's the only place, though, where I can sit down, turn my brain off, and just express.
And just be. Exactly. It's very much, I liken it to like playing drums. I mean, assuming that I'm prepared and assuming I know what I'm supposed to do, right? Playing drums is as comfortable as, sitting on my super comfy couch or wearing my super comfy, soft hoodie or whatever. So, yeah, no, but to your point, yes, it is quite a thing. And I occasionally do reflect on it, but in the moment, no, I never think like, oh my gosh, I better nail this because millions of people are watching.
Well, what I'll tell you is the world of drummers is counting on you.
Oh my God!
Oh my gosh. But it's funny. So, I'll tell you just a quick story. So, very long story short, I was living with my dad for a few months while I was kind of waiting for my house to be built. And he watched The Voice every night. And so we're sitting there watching The Voice, and he would give me crap because I'd be like, that's a Pearl drum set. Or we'd be watching something else, that's a DW drum set. And I knew who you were, right? So I'm like, oh, that's Nate Morton. And he's like, I don't know who that is. I'm like, every night you watch, that's who's playing drums, and that's because he loves your kit. When I was growing up, Pearl was my number one. And we'll get into that in a little bit, but Pearl was my number one. My first real drum set was Pearl Export. I had the Joey Jordison steel snare. At one point, I had the Maple Gum series. And so, there's... so Pearl was always the thing. So whenever he sees Pearl, he immediately thinks of me. And so when he saw you on the kit, I was like, yeah, that's Nate Morton. He plays Pearl. He plays with The Voice. It was pretty wild. But actually, speaking of kind of getting started, what sparked your love for the drums? Like, where did it all get started? How did you kind of get into it and start playing the drums?
My first two earliest influences, I mean, I'm an old man now, so I can only reflect back and kind of think like, oh yeah, I think that's where it started. Animal from the Muppet Show, right? I'm not alone in that.
No, you're not. I'll tell you right now, my wife is in the other room jumping up and down because you said that.
Sure. Well, Animal from the Muppet Show, because I'm going to be honest, I mean, maybe my mental faculties were slow to develop at 5 years old, but I don't know that Animal's a puppet. Yeah. I'm just watching this dude play drums and wow. So that was one of the earliest. And then, so my parents attended college in Nashville, Tennessee at a school called TSU, Tennessee State University, which is an HBCU. And so I don't know how familiar you are or how familiar your viewers, listeners are with HBCU marching bands, but I mean, more often than not, they are the show more so than the football game. You go to the football game to get there to see the bands, So that was a big influence on me. I used to march around my house. I would find a belt and I would put I would find a shoebox. This is so funny looking back on this stuff. But I would find a shoebox and I would cut slits in it and run a belt through it so I could wear the shoebox like a drum. And I would march around my house playing it with pens or pencils or whatever I had, pretending to be in the TSU marching band. So I think that at the genesis of my drums are cool was TSU. The aristocrat of bands. That was their name. The TSU marching band, the aristocrat of bands, and Animal from the Muppet Show.
Yeah, I mean, you can't go wrong.
Sure.
It's funny.
Got a lot of bases. Got a lot of bases covered right there.
That's right. And the Animal sets the tone for bringing the energy, bringing the emotion behind the kit. And it's funny. So one more side tangent, because again, I do it too. I think every year between November and January, my wife makes me watch A Muppet Christmas Carol 70 times. Sure. Nice. So I'm right there with you.
I have to nominate that one. I don't think that's ever made the rounds for our Christmas movie. It's either A Christmas Story or it's Jingle All the Way. That's a
Oh, yeah.
crowd
classic.
favorite in my house. And occasionally Scrooged, if you're familiar with that movie, featuring Bill Murray.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
But I'll have to check out A Muppet Christmas Carol. Maybe I'll have to put that in the rotation.
Oh, yeah. It was enough that I had to go track down a special edition vinyl, pick it up get it for Christmas collection, because I'm like, this is her thing. So I had to do it.
Dedication.
That's right. We got to do it to our drums and to our partners. We got to do it. Yeah, exactly, right? But let me ask you this question. So you see Animal playing the drums.
Yes.
Blown away. You see the marching band. You're like, yes, give me the shoebox. I want to do this. But did you always know this is what you wanted to do professionally? Or was this just kind of initially a passion?
I will tell you a story, which is that my first instrument that I actually had lessons on was piano. And at a certain point during my life, I was living with my mom on her parents' farm. So I'm living on her parents' farm in outside of Nashville, Tennessee, about an hour outside of Nashville, Tennessee, in Smith County, Tennessee. And I had a piano, and I was taking piano lessons. At one point, for whatever reason, I don't remember why, but we had rented a piano for me to practice on. And at one point, that stopped. And so the piano, the movers came, they took the piano. And my grandmother, Edwina Carter, would tell me, following, in the subsequent years, she would say, Duty Bud, because she called me Duty Bud, that's my nickname. Duty Bud, I remember you just threw yourself on the ground and you cried all day and you were screaming, there goes my career. She did that all day. So I would have been about 8, 9, something like that at that point. So to answer your question, I don't think that at 8 or 9 years old I was planning a career trajectory.
Yeah.
But I definitely knew that it was something that I loved. And in fact, point of fact, I couldn't have been planning a career trajectory because it wasn't until high school that someone, my private instructor at the time, Grant Menifee, actually said to me, you know what, if you work your butt off, you might be able to make a living doing this. I don't know if I necessarily had a proper career trajectory really planned at that point, because it wasn't until high school that my drum instructor, Grant Menifee, said, if you really work your butt off at this thing, you might be able to make a living doing it. And that was very much a springboard into me really taking it very, very seriously. But minimally, in the single digit age that I was, 8 or 9 or wherever, I definitely had a passion for it. And while I mightn't have known, like, oh, I'll make contacts and I'll network and I'll do that. Obviously, come on, I'm 8, right? But I definitely knew that I loved playing. Loved playing.
Yeah, and music, and it sounds like music, especially growing up in Nashville, it's got to be just ingrained in the local culture. Anywhere you go.
I wish I could claim that, but I can't. I was little, right? So I wasn't on the scene or anything. And then B, I lived in the sticks. The nearest town was Carthage, Tennessee. And so anyone can look up Carthage, Tennessee, you're going to find a lot of things about Al Gore, because that's where the Gore family is from. They're from Carthage. But it's about an hour outside. So a lot of people ask me that. They say, hey man, what was it like, growing up in Nashville and being, whatever. And I was a kid then. I wasn't, a functioning professional musician or anything of the sort. Not then.
Oh, yeah, not yet.
No.
That came at 10, 11, and 12. Just kidding.
If only.
Yeah, right. So talking about professional, though, let's talk about the voice. We can kind of jump into that. And I think the biggest thing I'm curious about, because, a lot of the conversations I've had are, how did you get to play with artists A, B, or C, or how did you get to be in the band X, Y, and Z? But the voice is a totally different animal. You're joining this live television show where you're going to have dozens of different styles of music, different artists every night. It's a competition. I'm curious, how did you land that gig? What were the kind of paths that led you there? But then also, was there like a traditional audition process? Did you have to come in and kind of audition for that gig?
Kyle, this is a question that I get asked quite frequently. And the answer is an extremely long one. However, for the purposes of brevity, I will give you the overview. Okay? So, let's see here. Where to begin? Somewhere around the beginning of 2005, I got a call from a friend. Derek was his name. He's a bass player. And he and I had played maybe 1 or 2 gigs, not a ton, but we had played together. And I got a call from Derek. And Derek said, hey, Mark Burnett is putting together this TV show. And would you be interested in being in the band that auditions for, to be the house band for this show? Mm-hmm. So, cut to, of course I say yes. January, I'm auditioning. The would-be band for that show. Actually, it's really hard to make this a short story. I'm trying.
That's okay.
But I'm not going to do very well. So
that's okay.
So basically, the way that it started was I went day one to audition, and I auditioned, and there's probably, I don't know, I'm kind of pulling it out of the air, but maybe there's a dozen bands. And the intention is we're going to audition these dozen bands, and we're going to pick and choose the guys from the band that we dig, and we're going to mix and match, and we're going to figure out the band that we want. So that's all day one. And if recollection serves, that's kind of all day 2. So then I get a call day 3. Okay, we've narrowed it down to X, Y, and Z. Can you be here tomorrow? Sure. So I'm there all day. And at one point, they kind of, there are 3 drummers that they've called back. And at one point, they go to one of the other drummers. One of the people in charge, one of the executives in charge, goes to this other drummer. And I don't know, I don't hear the conversation. All I know is this other drummer picks up his cymbals and sticks and pedal and gets in his car and goes home. So now it's myself and one other drummer. And we're getting into the night now. And at a certain point, the same producer goes to the other drummer, and they have a conversation, and the other drummer picks up their things. And as they're walking by me, they give me a friend bump, and they go, congratulations, man.
Yeah, you're like,
congratulations, man.
Yeah.
And I assume nothing. No part of me goes, yeah, woohoo.
Yeah.
Right?
High five.
Right. So I end up being there for several more hours. And so then when things finally wrap for that night, this same producer says, okay, everybody, we're done. We're done for the night. No one came up to me like, you got the gig, right? So
you're like, what do I do?
I go to this particular producer, and I say to them, so there's no other drummers here. And they go, yes, that's your observation is accurate. and I kind of go, and I said, and I quote, so would this be a good time for me to go home and have a celebratory drink?
Yeah.
And they said, and I quote, well, this would definitely be a good time for you to go home and have a drink. I swear, this is the exact conversation.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so here's where we'll jump into the time machine and we'll flash forward.
Yeah.
So I was called to be a part of the potential band, let's put it that way. And over several weeks, that potential band played for TV executives, Mark Burnett executives, NXS management people. I should have started this, by the way. This is the audition for Rockstar. I should have started there. I skipped that part. This is in 2005, the audition for Rockstar.
Yeah.
And so we jumped through a bunch of hoops. And with each successive, jumping through of a hoop, we moved sort of closer and closer to the potential finish line. Well, it was May when we were called into the offices of Mark Burnett. And it was at that point, 5 of us. It was myself, bass player Sasha Krivtsov, musical director Paul Merkovich, guitarist Rafa Moreira, and multi-instrumentalist Jim McGorman, singing, playing keys, and playing guitar. And they said, all right, gentlemen, if you guys are interested, here's the contract. Look it over. Okay. Now, it's important that I go back this far. That band ultimately became the band on Rockstar. That band then did several sessions together in town. That band then did other TV shows, some more successful than others. That band toured with Paul Stanley. Members of that band, myself and Sasha, wound up playing with Paul Merkovich, my musical director, with Cher. So then flash forward many, many years, and Paul gets called to do The Voice. And then there go Sasha and I on The Voice because of a relationship that started, I don't know, what's the math there? I think that was 2011. So a relationship that would have started, 11, 5, 6 years?
Yeah.
Somewhere 6, 7 years that we were together. So I guess all I'm saying is this. When I was, asking players who were doing gigs, like, how did you get that gig? How did you get that gig? I just wanted to hear, oh, I called this person. They told me go to this place. I played this song. Voila, I got the gig. And sometimes it happens that way, I suppose. But in the case of The Voice, it was several years in the making. And if I may lastly summarize that very, very long answer, if I may summarize, essentially the takeaway here is success, as far as I'm concerned, success in this industry is about relationships. And I really don't like it when people say, it's not what you know, it's who you know. I don't like that because that de-emphasizes the importance of preparedness.
Oh,
right? Yeah. Right? So I don't like it's not what you know, it's who you know. But I would say it is what you know and also who you know. In the sense that you've got to get your foot in the door. You've got to get in there. And that's relationships. And I should also lastly point out, as I mentioned at the beginning of the story, I had done only a couple of gigs ever with Derek, who called me and put me in the room at the Mark Burnett audition for Rockstar. It wasn't like Derek and I were boys. We had done a few gigs. So that relationship led to that audition, led to an additional relationship that then led to additional gigs that then ultimately led to The Voice.
You just hit something right on the head, which is a common theme in these conversations, which is I guess the concept of the whole package, right? Like, just being really good at your instrument is not enough to get you in the door. It's a starting point. It's a prerequisite. You have to know your stuff. You have to put in the work. Gotten really great at your instrument. That's a given, but it's the preparedness that you mentioned. You don't ever want to go into an audition without knowing what you're getting into, having the songs down, or at the very least knowing what you're going to be expected to do. And then secondly, while you're there, doesn't matter if it's audition, doesn't matter if it's a bar gig to 12 people, you are respectful, you're professional, you're mature, you have a great attitude, you're working well with others, you're building relationships. And you said something too that I really like. You're not just building connections, because again, it's not just networking for the sake of networking. Like, we're all here in the industry together. Let's learn from each other, let's help each other out, let's work with each other. And a lot of the gigs that I got just these past 2 years have been the same thing. I played with somebody, they recommended me to somebody else, I played with them, they recommended me to somebody else, I played with them. And that's really, I think a lot of what the success comes from is you got to put in the work, but also, excuse my language, don't be a dick
when you get the opportunity.
Of course. Absolutely. And to your point, you mentioned whether it's an audition or you're playing, to a bar and there's 12 people in it. I mean, you could be playing to a bar in LA and there's 12 people in it, and you don't know. One of those 12 people might be a producer who just finished working on a record down the street and walks in and here, right? You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the nature of living in this town. And when I first moved here, it was very daunting because I felt like everywhere I turned, there was a musician. Like, I go to Starbucks and the guy handing me my coffee is a bass player. We talk about that. Or I go to wherever, and the person who helps me choose a suit at Macy's, is an aspiring producer. And it was daunting at first because I felt like, wow, there's all these people around who, like, aren't at the level of success yet or whatever, right? But then I kind of flipped it and I kind of realized, like, actually what that means is everyone you meet potentially represents an opportunity to make a connection, an opportunity to meet someone and start a relationship. So yeah, man, that's a big part of it. And I sound like a broken record when I say it, because I remember being that person, like, how do I get a gig? How do I do this? How do I do that? And it was networking. That was always the answer. Networking. And what that looks like today is a little bit different, what with social media at all.
Yeah.
But it is still, at the end of the day, networking.
Yeah. And I think this experience right now is a good example. So, like, I reached out to you on Instagram, and then here we are, we're emailing, and then here we are on the phone. And to me, I'm like, that's the difference, though, between a professional and, just to back up a little bit, something that I made like my little slogan, I guess, on my brand is professionalism, maturity, and grace. If you're leading with those three things, you can pretty much achieve whatever dreams you want, as long as you're consistent and you work hard, do the work right, and you're disciplined. But to me, what makes a good partner, a good connection, a good network, whatever you want to call it, is the fact that even though, and I can tell you're very humble, but even though you have reached a pretty great level of success and notoriety, you're like, yes, let's talk. I want to get to know you. Let's have a conversation. Let's talk drums and the industry. And to me, that is a great steward, or a great sign of a good steward of our relationship.
Do you know what I didn't have when I was 10 years old, or 12, or 15, or 20? Access. I didn't have access. I didn't have access. I couldn't at that age email Anton Fig.
Yeah.
I couldn't do that. And so me now, sort of, quote unquote, being where I am, I feel like it is a privilege to get to share. Because in my just weird, cosmic, karmic world, to me, I'm hoping that the ultra dimension 10-year-old me out there hears this and benefits from it, because I have the opportunity now to share it.
I love that idea, because you're 100% right. We talked about this a little bit before we started recording, but I started playing drums when I was 8, and really did it. I started doing it more, I won't say professionally, but at that time professionally, from like 12 until 21. So just playing in bars, playing with bands, putting out whatever I could record, right? Just doing whatever you can to get out. And then you'll get the call, hey, we're having a baby, so put all that on pause, go be a dad, focus on that. Still played, but just was like, that's now second. This is now first. COVID hits, the world stops, and I'm like, you know what? I want to try doing this again. I'm like, I got nothing going on. I'm gonna just get a camera, get a microphone, and try to do YouTube. And I say all this because at first it was like, let's just do this for fun. I just want to relive my passion, share it with whoever wants to watch, and maybe have a little fun along the way. And as I'm doing it, putting myself out there, I'm getting a call. Hey, do you want to come do this session? Sure. Hey, do you want to come do this gig? Sure. And I start to remember how much I just, so I'll tell you, my last concert I played up until, the last couple of years was 2012. I didn't play another one until 2022. So there was a 10-year gap between, me just playing in front of a crowd. And now I've, toured US, Europe, all that fun stuff. But the point is, I came back to it with a different perspective. And so when you talk about the alternate dimension or ultimate reality version of yourself, there was a part of me during that time where I'm like, gosh, what would have happened had I continued on the path?
And now,
yeah, go for it.
From 2012 to 22, what did you do?
Work.
Did you have like a norm? What was your work? What was your job?
Yeah, my job.
I'm still kind of in that world, to be honest. So corporate and the auto finance world. Ooh. So real exciting. But I'll say this. I'll tell you this.
Yeah.
I have to give it, the kudos and respect it deserves. It allowed me to revisit my dream. It allowed me to build a house for my family.
And there's a word as well. There's a word associated with your auto finance job that is seldom associated with being a professional musician, and that word is
Stability.
Consistency.
Oh,
Or
and that
stability,
too.
exactly. Consistency, stability, exactly. So I'll tell you a quick story.
Yeah.
So I'm on a bus one day with my dad, and I don't know where we were going or why we were on a bus, but we're on a bus one day, and a guy gets on the bus, and I'm probably at this point maybe just about to graduate college, or maybe I'm a year or so removed, so I'm kind of finding my way playing wise, and
Yeah.
I've only ever played. I've never, for better or for worse, I've never had a day gig. There are times
Yeah.
when I should have had a day gig. Like when you're 22 years old and you're walking to like the apartment complex management office and you're charging your rent on a credit card, you should probably have a day gig. but I didn't. I refused, right? So we're on this bus, and a guy gets on the bus, and he's wearing Sears coveralls. He's wearing Sears coveralls. He's wearing coveralls with the big Sears patch on it. And I lean over to my dad, and I go, Dad, that guy probably works like on a truck loading dock at Sears, unloading boxes all day for like 8 or 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
I could never do that. My dad looks at me. My dad goes, you don't know how you're paying your rent next month. That guy could never do that.
Yeah. Oh my God, I love that.
I was like, you're right. Yeah, you're right. So there's a certain amount of consistency and a certain amount of stability that you sort of tend to have to give up to do this, thing. So my point being, I fault you not one iota for working in a more consistent and more stable environment. Yeah, man, good for you.
Absolutely. And right now, I do both, which presents its own challenges. But I'm very fortunate. To your point, I can't go without knowing where my next paycheck's coming. But at the same time, I can't go without this. So I find a way to kind of balance the two. And
that's where YouTube.
Yeah, I got another story for you. And I was literally just talking to this person earlier today because he's a dear, dear, dear friend. I have a friend. His name is Tony D'Augustine. And not only is he a friend, he is an outstanding drummer. And Tony is a little bit my senior, right? He's a little older than me. And at one point, he was living in L.A. I was in L.A. because I was touring. And I was probably in my mid-late 20s. He would have been, like I said, a little senior to me at that point. Well, I guess time doesn't change, so I guess he stays senior to me. So at that point and at this point. But I digress. So I said to him, I said, hey, Tony, I said, this is to your point, by the way. Either you used this word or what you said just inspired it. I said, Tony, what's the hardest thing about being a professional musician? And I'm expecting he's going to say, drums that sound great. Like you always have drums, or reading chops, or, being versatile. And he said, balance. And I said, balance between what?
Like on your drum stool?
Right. And he said, balance between everything. And I said, oh yeah, of course, obviously, yeah, balance between everything. What the crap does that mean, right? But I realize now, every day something happens that takes me back to that conversation, because every day something happens that points out the importance of finding balance. You have your professional musician life where you're doing gigs and playing and going and doing clubs and you're out quite late hours, I'm betting.
Yeah.
You have your corporate life where you've got to be on the clock at probably 9 a.m., if not earlier, and you're doing that. And as you've mentioned now several times, you have a family. So finding the balance, and balance is an always ever moving target. So it's funny because, we didn't chat before this, and I didn't give you like setup questions, but literally the two words that guide my existence are balance and relationships. Those two things. Almost everything in my life somehow falls under one of, if not both of, those two umbrellas. Balance, relationships. So just something to simmer on, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, that's it. I've said it. Balance and relationships, those two things, man.
And I agree with you regardless of what we're talking about, right? It could be in any, to your point, any facet of life.
100%.
Like those are the most important things because
100%.
Between those two things, you can prioritize, you know what to take action on, you know what's struggling, what's doing well, you know where you can focus more time. And like to your point, you know, maybe there was time I could focus more in here and on the drums and session, but then, okay, well, now I'm going to focus over here on this. I'm going to,
well,
just allows you to...
Sorry, sorry to cut you off, Bubba. But no. The problem is, or not the problem, but the challenge is, for example, I'm super busy. I've got gig after gig after gig after gig. Oh, my daughter just turned 8 and I missed it. Oh, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or I've got this opportunity and it pays this amount of dollars, which is great, but I've got this opportunity. It doesn't pay as much, but I love these guys so much more. Or I love this music so much more. I mean, it is literally an ongoing, every day, by the moment, a moving target, finding balance between everything.
Yeah, and I think that's a little bit of where integrity comes in too. You know, it's those relationships can weigh heavily on the integrity. If you choose, you know, to your point, something that pays really well but it's going to tarnish a relationship that you hold near and dear and highly valuable, it's probably not worth doing it. You know, everything comes at a cost, sure. But that's, again, the challenge of balance of like, what what do I do? And when you're in those situations, who are you going to lean on? The people you have relationships with. And so to me, it's crucial. And that's another reason why I started these interviews is because for me, one, I wanted to make more friends in the industry, reach out to people that I respect and admire, but also create valuable relationships. Not just like, hey, cool, I talked to this person and I'm putting on the internet. Like, this is, you know, for everybody I've talked to, whether we're out filming or not, it's been, hey, I want to be able to continue to lean on each other, you know, and be advocates for each other and support each other and lift each other up. And again, to the example before, it doesn't matter if it's 12 people or 12,000 people or 12 million. It's how can we continue to build this industry? And to your point, be privileged enough to be able to say, I've done this thing for so long, or I've done it in so many great opportunities. How can I continue to pass that on to the next person? And, you know, to your point, every day is a gift. That generally, every day is a gift. But then you look at every day I can still go in there and have that me time we talked about and get in the zone. Again, whether I'm just here in my room, I think that our community, the drummer community, is unique in the sense that a lot of us do cheer each other on and lift each other up and want to see success. Not to say that other musicians don't, I'm sure, you know, but it is something that I am really proud of. But what I get nervous of is the next generation. I want to make sure that they continue to uphold that and continue to pay it forward, especially to your point in the social media world landscape that we're in, where having that connection with the audience is further than it maybe used to be. You know, if I'm digitally and I'm commenting and whatever the case is, I don't have that immediate connection. I was talking to Brian about this earlier, which is our job is to help build that connection with the audience, to help transfer the music to them, to help them connect emotionally to something. It's like, that's what greater calling could we have? And I'm going to be a little biased here, but I think the drummer is the center of that. The drummer is the one who keeps all of that together. It's the foundation, the stability that really makes the music happen. And so therefore, I make the conclusion that the drummers need to also have a stable foundation with the relationships and networking, things like that. So a little bit of an essay in my answer, but the point I'm making is, and it was a really long one, but the point I'm making is, to your point, like, that relationship piece is part of the balance, in my opinion. You know, I think they go hand in hand, but I do think that without it, you can't find the balance.
Just to speak on something that you mentioned, just very, very, very briefly, I think it was Miles Davis who said the drummer makes the band.
That's right.
The drummer makes the band. And I will stand and fight on that hill all day. The drummer makes the band. You could have the most outstanding collection of musicians with a crap drummer, and they're going to sound horrible. You could have a moderate to fairly good high school jazz band and put Steve Gadd on drums, and it's going to kill.
Yeah. You're right, though.
You know what's funny about that too? I can't remember who I was talking to about this, but I feel like that's one of the reasons a lot of musical directors are also drummers, because there is that sense of the cohesion and creating the groove and creating the feel. Feel is such a hard thing to describe to people, I feel like, that don't play an instrument. I promise I'm getting to a question, but like what you just said, I think is so important. Like, it's our feel, our personality, who we are as people comes through in what we're doing. But we also have to have the discipline and restraint to sit back in the pocket and make sure the song gets the respect it deserves. So I think that does lead to a good question. I'll get off my
You're okay, man. You're okay. I'm just letting you go. I'm letting you go. Because here's the thing. Sometimes I do podcasts, and sometimes I kind of try to like flip it, and I start asking the podcaster questions. Like I start podcasting them. But like, you're kind of doing it for me. I'm just like sitting back here. I don't even have to do any work. You're just like, well, by the way, let me tell you about this. I was like, all right, cool, go for it.
And that's the good thing is like, we call it an interview, but for me, this is just a conversation. We can talk about whatever we want to talk about. But I will say this. So you're on The Voice or playing with Paul Stanley or whomever else. You're there, Cher. But anyway, you're playing with these incredible artists. You know, how do you keep yourself disciplined and reserved and in the pocket when I'm sure, and I think also on The Voice, I imagine there's a little bit of room as well for you to kind of show some of your personality and kind of go off a little bit. But I'm curious how you find that balance. Back to the balance word.
So with regard to sort of balance in terms of how much I play or how much I let my personality come into it or how much I stick to, strictly this is the drum machine part to believe, since you mentioned Cher, or any of that. So I believe, and unless someone wants to fight me on this, basically your playing style, right? Your playing and how you play and how you express yourself on the instrument is at the intersection of everything you've learned, right? So this is everything you've learned avenue going this way, and this is everything you've listened to street going this way. The intersection of everything you've learned and everything you've listened to results in how you are or how you sound or what your instincts are as a player. So I love Dennis Chambers, and I listened to a ton of that stuff, and I listened to Vinny, and I've heard dudes who can chop you out the room, right? So I know that exists. But a lot of what I listened to was groove and pocket and all of that oriented, you know what I mean? I could sit here and nerd out and be like, oh man, let me play you my favorite fill. And it's not going to be a lot of notes. It's going to be a fill that like Will Kennedy played on a Yellow Jackets record. And the reason it blows me away is because he had the whole bar, but he started the fill on the, of one. And I freak out. You know what I mean? Like, what? So it's not the volume of notes. So take that and put that in the little compartment and slide that over here, right? We're making a recipe. So put that in this bowl and put it over here on the side of the cabinet or on the counter. So now marry that to this idea that very, very early on, like college, I realized you're never going to be the guy who blasts people out of the room with chops. I went through, and again, I love Dennis Chambers. Like, I love that dude. And there are little things that here and there along the way, to the extent that my chops will allow me, I've sort of borrowed or stolen or like, oh, this is that little crossover thing. I'll try to do that somewhere, whatever. But like, I realized very quickly that was not my lane. And I gravitated towards, there's a point to this, I promise. I gravitated towards, let me compensate. Is it possible for me to compensate for my lack of Olympic level chops with clever phrasing? or unique phrasing. So I lean that way. Okay, so there's that. So that's the other ingredient, right? So part of it is I never really went to the crazy chop out thing. And then the other part of it is I tried to sort of compensate by being like something interesting. Like, what can I do that's interesting? Like, that's unique. Well, the end result of that is when it comes an opportunity to play a fill or whatever, the fill that takes up the most subdivisions, or the fastest, let's say, the fastest available subdivisions in a bar, I just don't hear that. My ear doesn't function that way. I'm much more apt to hear something that was inspired, that I heard Ricky Lawson play, in the Yellow Jackets. Again, you know what I mean? So to your point, I'm not fighting the urge to chop out, because I don't, in my DNA, chop out isn't really there, if that makes sense. Now, all that being said, do I overplay sometimes? Oh, hell yes. Like, let's be real, right?
Yeah.
Like, I posted a video at one point where I was playing All Right Now, baby. And at a certain point in the song, I played a songo, baby. Like, I was playing kind of, right? So is that overplaying? Sure, a little bit, right? And are people who are like devout, like, yeah, it's not the part. No, it's not, right? So I know that I can definitely find little spaces where I but it's not an ongoing battle to somehow what's that called? Repress the Nate that wants to. God, did I just refer to myself in the third person? Dear Lord. But I'm not trying to repress. I'm not trying to repress some part of my personality that's dying to go ham on the kit.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's just not in me. I'll just bring that. I'll give you a whole another little like roundabout, bring it to a close kind of thing.
Yeah.
Which is when I went to Berkeley, I was all about that. I wanted to be like the next fusion dude. I was all about anything that came from the Chick Corea family tree, anything that came from the like Mahavishnu, like all that. Like, I was all about it. Like, let's go. And then one day, and with all due respect to all of that, right? All due respect to all of that, one day it all started to sound the same, and it coincided. Check this out, Kyle. It coincided with me walking down the hallway in my dorm, and there was a community room, like the you're right, and there's a TV on, and MTV was on, which I don't even know, like, if anybody even knows what that used to be. But MTV used to play music videos, and the M stands for music. Which is far removed from these days. But Smells Like Teen Spirit was on. And I'm walking by, and I hear, for the first time, why is it up? Daisy goes, you got chickens, guys, you got chickens, guys, have to shine, right? And me, music school nerd, right? Music school nerd. I hear this, I sit in my head, I'm like, and I see them, and they're like dancing around or whatever in like a high school gymnasium or whatever that video is, and I'm like, what is this crap? Like, because in my head, it's like, if it's not polyrhythms and fusions and it's crap. I'm like, what is this crap? Right? That's the beginning. By the time the song ended, I was like, this is the best song in the world.
Yeah.
I was like, this is the best song in the world.
Oh, yeah.
Since you were waxing philosophical a while ago, I'll wax muso-philosophical now.
Let's do it.
Nirvana, right? Apologies to every preceding hair metal band that came before Nirvana, but Nirvana quote unquote, flipped the script. And I won't say, as the kids say, flip the script, because I say flip the script. It's not a new phrase. It's the old way, as the old ass people say, flip the script, in the sense that
same page,
right? So in the sense that before Nirvana, you could have a motley collection of musicians, and if the guitar player shredded, you were good. By the way, that's not a dig on Motley Crue. Motley Crue's amazing. But I just mean that in that era, you could have, a good band in the metal days, a good band. But if the guitar player shredded solos, it was like, woo!
Yeah.
Nirvana was like, okay, we're going to flip it. Everybody in the band is going to be like, okay, except the drummer, who's going to pound the most ridiculously crushing drum groove you've ever heard in your life. And it doesn't matter if I know 3 chords. You know what I mean? So so that changed it. So that was the switch flip that made me kind of transition from I need to play a ton of notes to I need to play a heavy ass groove. Can I come up with that? Can I figure out how to do that? So again, bringing it all back around again to your point, which is, well, how do you balance, going nuts versus the song versus everything? My instinct isn't to go nuts. My instinct is to try to play the song. And the little amount of facility that I may have developed over the course of this however many decades, sitting behind the dang instrument, every now and then it comes out, or every now and then I go, oh, I'm going to try to pretend to be a drummer who has chops. I think to myself, if I was a drummer with chops, what would I play? And I try to do that, right? But generally speaking, it's not an ongoing battle. It's very much like I am completely fulfilled, despite sometimes overplaying, but I am completely fulfilled doing my best to serve the song.
Yeah, and and to your defense, we all overplay, right? Regardless of when or how, we all do it. And that's one of the things, so very similar. So, started playing the drums at 8, got my hands on Slipknot's self-titled album, 1999. And that, to me, was like, oh my gosh, both feet going, both hands going, percussion, all of it, just the noise. And for me, and then Joey was, rest in peace, but he was a master of mixing the heavy and the groove together, just really laying that in. But same thing, I went into the metal, death metal, tech metal, prog metal, I went into that space. And same kind of thing. It has to be odd time signatures. No parts can repeat. Weird fills. Everything's got to be really fast. And I did that, until I was 21. And I was like, everything else is trash. I'm like, this is all that matters. And then you grow up. No shade on those guys. The ones who can do it, they do it well, right?
Sure.
But for me, I grew up and I started to go, well, actually, I really like the way this Rihanna song feels. I really like the way this Fall Out Boy or Nirvana or Foo Fighters was kind of that switch for me. Dave going under the guitar, but Taylor Hawkins, again, also rest in peace. Probably some of the most just creative, big, powerful fills. But go ahead, yeah.
When you were in what I will call heavy death metal math rock era, at some point did it start to sort of sound a little bit the same to you? And again, and we are on the same page. No shade on any of that. No shade on any of that. But did you at some point? Well, you mentioned Rihanna and you mentioned other artists. So at some point you were like, hey, I wonder what it would be like to just play verse, chorus, chorus, bridge, breakdown, chorus out. Play a song and make it feel good, and not have to think what?
One of these days, I'll send you a song I recorded with them. This is 2012, and what you just said is basically what it was. Just just noise. And when you're playing, especially without a click, for a long time I did it without a click, and it's just every night's a different tempo. You can't tell what the singer's doing. The guitars can't figure it. So it's just one of those things. Yeah, it's hard to connect. And to me, I'm like, back to what I said before. We're stewards of connecting to the audience. At the end of the day, none of us have a job if nobody comes out to watch us play.
Right.
Or the artist, right? And I think where that became really true for me was I filled in for this band, really great, just kind of modern rock band around here. They're called Jane in the Jungle, and they hired me to just do a festival show with Jordan Sparks. So 20,000 people showed up. You know, it's just this beautiful festival. It's outside, we're right by a lake. I mean, it's just surreal. And it's, you know, a little, mostly pretty simple kind of rock stuff, but there was some blues in there, and there was some just really good feel stuff. We're on a click, we have backing tracks, you know, it's kind of more what I'm used to more recently, but gosh, I could just sit in it because I was prepared, you know, I did the work, we rehearsed, I knew the songs, just sit in, enjoy it, you know, just, it was one of the best experiences I've had as a drummer. And it kind of made me think, so I think you'll probably feel similarly, but Brian and I were talking about that, Brian Fraser Moore, and he said something that just has stuck with me, which was like, I'm not a pop drummer, I'm not a hip hop drummer, I'm not a rock drummer, I'm a drummer. And you tell me what you need, right? And then I'll be that for you. Like, it's my job to be able to fulfill whatever it is that you need as the artist. And I loved that because I think too often we get stuck in those labels of like, well, this is what I do, you know?
So I went to, as you may or may not know, but I went to a college of music. I went to Berklee College of Music, which I love, by the way. I love that I went there. I had an outstanding experience there. You and I could do an entire other 2.5 hour long podcast on about, you know, the experience there. But there were people there who were like, I'm the jazz guy. I'm the jazz Jew. That's what I do. I'm the funk guy, man. I'm the Latin guy, man. And my thing was like, I want to be the employed guy, man.
Yeah.
Like, I want to be the employed guy. And so therefore, right. So therefore, to Brian's point, by the way, I just had a conversation with Brian this morning, like driving into work. He and I were chatting, you know, along my morning commute. And his point is an excellent one, which is, you know, I mean, I want to have a skill set that allows me to feel comfortable regardless the door that I'm walking through.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And,
Absolutely.
And it's funny because I realized that, I mean, now I don't mean that to sound like I'm some sort of visionary at all. It's just the fact that like my favorite guys were Vinny Colaiuta and Omar Hakim.
Mm-hmm.
And in my head, I just thought like, bro, like these dudes could parachute into any gig on the planet and sound like that's all they ever did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you could drop those guys into any gig. So it's not surprising that that's what I drew my inspiration from. And those were the guys who most inspired me. And those were the guys who I most tried to be. And it's very funny. I was just watching some Omar Hakim videos. There was a show called Night Music that was on, oh goodness, let's see. I think I would have been in high school. So that would have been 2014. Just kidding.
I was going to go with you on it.
No,
it was 2015. 2015.
Forever ago, yeah, forever ago. But he was the drummer on this show, Night Music. And the Night Music band used to back up the musical guests on the show.
Yeah.
So you've got the Night Music band, and they're backing up LL Cool J and Bootsy Collins and Stevie Ray Vaughan and Taj Mahal and Al Green. And you know what I'm saying? So I don't think at that time, you know what's funny? I always refer to The Voice as the gig I spent my life preparing for, even though I didn't know it existed. Because it didn't back then.
Yeah.
But like, that's what I always wanted to be. I always wanted to be like, oh, I can play all this random stuff. And then, you know, and earlier, way back, you kind of said like, oh, and you know, when you're on The Voice, you've got to play all these different genres. And in my head, I went, I get to play all these different genres.
That's right.
You know what I mean? So,
well, it's funny. Well, it's funny you say that. So, like, similar for me. Like, I found Omar and Vinny later after I got out of my death metal, you know, phase.
There we go. So, to resume, basically what we were talking about was you said that you get to play all of these different styles of music. And what I was going to share on that is that's part of the reason I love YouTube so much is like, I'm playing everything. I put out a country cover today, but the one I put out on Monday was a heavy metal track, and then the one I put out the week before that was a hip hop track. And it's like, and don't get me wrong, the first half of the song I'll typically play it as the record. Then the second half of the song I'm like, let's see what happens. Let's put some some double bass or crazy fills.
Sure.
But part of that's just because the audience, or the content that the audience is tuning into is me playing. So it's like, okay, well, I want to make it entertaining and make it fun and have a good time. But when I'm live, it's like, okay, we're dialed in, we're playing the song, serve the audience. So it's an interesting difference. I get to kind of have my fun back here, or I shouldn't say that, a version of fun back here, and then at some point I'll send you a picture of this, but I've got this dumb, just double bass, crazy drum set. It's just so much fun to play. Here, I'll show you really quick if you can see it. So it's just this crazy double bass kit, and it's fun though. It's when I get to jam out and on it and everything, and then when I play live in here in this closet, I have a much smaller, single kick, one rack, 2 floors, just enough to get the job done. But it's one of the things I swear by though, is I have a second kit. It's tuned. It's brand new heads. It's in cases. Hardware's ready. Cymbals are ready. So if I get the call, I'm out the door. Super important to me because this isn't going with me anywhere. This is this is stuck.
Yes.
But anyway, so back to your point. Getting to play those different genres, I think, also takes you out of that mindset we were talking about of like, I'm the jazz guy, I'm the pop guy, I'm the funk guy. It's like, no, I just play drums, and I don't care what style of music it is.
Like, it's
I don't know who the original, I don't know who this quote is originally attributed to, but in this quote, music is bigger than genre.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Music is bigger than genre. And so I definitely believe that. In fact, I had lessons once with an instructor in school, and I walk into my first lesson, and we're, I'm studying with this particular guy because I want to learn jazz. Mm-hmm. So I walk in, and like, I'm a match grip guy, but I walk into the lesson, I'm trying to play traditional, whatever, and and I'm playing my little like Philly Joe Jones licks where I'm like, I'm on the, and they said to me, they basically said, I've seen you play around the college. Like, I know you're not a traditional grip guy. Like, why are you playing trad grip? Like, and they basically said, your trad grip sucks.
Yeah.
And they said, right? Which is true. And then they were kind of like, and why are you, like, do you have this, like, pretext in your head that when you're playing jazz, you have to confine yourself to this small collection of little straight-ahead bebop licks that you think you know? And they said, if you're swinging, and if you can do it musically, there's no reason you can't play a bottom lick.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So that was very eye-opening for me, and that was very much how I sort of started to approach music from that point forth, from the idea that music is bigger than genre. So, hence, circling it all the way back to I'm playing All Right Now, and then 2 or 3 bars of a song falls in there, because I'm not limiting myself to, I'm playing classic rock now, so it's got to be in this box.
And that's one of the things that I have so much fun with back here is like, I did a Lady Gaga one just maybe a couple weeks ago. I did that Perfect Celebrity song, and it's just a awesome song, but like, again, you hear the track and you're like, I hear something different, and so I'm like, okay, I'm just gonna try it, and like, so I play like I said, a lot of times I'll do the first section of a song as close to the record, and then I'll take the second section of the song and be like, I'm just gonna play it how I hear it, and ended up being a really cool take. I really enjoyed it. But there's double bass grooves in there, and there's big fills, but another thing that I can't remember who said this, so I apologize, but it captured the spirit of the song. So it didn't take away from the feel, didn't take away from the spirit. It just was my interpretation of it. And
so you spend the first part of the song painting the bowl of fruit.
Yeah.
And you spend the second part of the song flinging paint across the room at a canvas.
Exactly. And it's fun. It's fun because what I'm trying to show is like I could I can play the song, but
Right, I can paint the bowl of fruit.
yeah, but check
I know
this
how
out.
to paint the
Like,
bowl of fruit, and now
Yeah.
I'm going to dip basketballs in paint and fling them in a canvas across the room. I get it. I totally get it. I do.
Exactly, and it's fun to do that a little bit. Like to your point, putting the different feel grooves in a different song, and it's just a little flavor. Speaking of that, though, the painting the bowl of fruit, and also not wanting to be the jazz guy or the rock guy, but wanting to be the employed guy. What do you think it takes right now to make somebody hireable in today's music landscape? And I know it's a big question.
I mean, at first I let out a heavy sigh.
Yeah,
Ugh.
ugh.
But at the same time, I mean, is it really dramatically different than it always ever was? I mean, I don't know. In other words, when I was trying to find my way, being versatile was a super attribute. Is being versatile no longer a super attribute? No, of course it is. Okay. Yeah. When I was trying to find my way, being a guy who you could live on a tour bus with for 6 months and not want to strangle to death was a big attribute. Is that still an attribute today? Yeah, probably pretty sure.
Yeah.
In my day, Sonny, having really good sounding gear was an attribute. Is that still an attribute today? Think so. Now, there are certain things that exist today that didn't exist back then. So in terms of playing, I'm not even talking about social media, but in terms of playing nowadays, a lot of quote unquote touring bands are two dudes or two girls or whatever, two people, right? And it's one person playing maybe guitar or maybe keys and running Ableton, and then a live drummer. It's a live drummer and someone playing one instrument and running Ableton. So is the ability to run Ableton a marketable skill set to have today? Probably. Can I do it? No. I'm the old guard. I'm on the way out. You know what I mean? But in terms of, how to be employable, is it worth spending time having the ability or gaining the ability to know how to run Ableton? Probably. Couldn't hurt.
Yeah.
Right? Couldn't hurt. Electronics in general are a bigger deal today. Having an SPD, a Roland SPD SX Pro, and the ability to start and stop loops or trigger the exact sample of the sound as it was on the record. That's something that didn't exist in as strong a way as it does now, right? So to answer your question in a very succinct way, lots of the things are still the same, but the addition is this electronic element. That's something that's important now, I think. And if you have it, if you don't have it, does it mean you're unemployable? No, of course not. But if you do have it, does it make you slightly more marketable or slightly more employable, if you will? Then sure, yeah. So now, what I also have to point out too, I have to preface, or I should have prefaced that by saying, I'm working on 98, I moved here. I'm working on a 25-year-old operating system. You know what I'm saying? I've had a few updates along the way, but ultimately the genesis is a 25-year-old operating system. So I'm gathering things and I'm speaking in wild conjecture about things that I didn't really grow up in. But that's my observation. So a lot of the skill set is the same. And for example, even in as much as networking is still a big deal, it's just what that looks like is very different. What networking looks like now is a different animal.
One of the things that worries me about, and you can tell me what you think, but about younger drummers, maybe not even just younger drummers, but just kind of some of the drummers I see on social media specifically, is that disconnection between the experience of listening and playing with others, or because they're only doing it in their room, which again, if that's what you want to do, go for it. No shade from me. But that future generation of drummers who do make the leap into live, I have this thing that I call drummer etiquette, which is like, when you play at a local club, for example, and the drummer is on the stage, they're done playing, and he's taking his wing nuts and taking his cymbals off and folding the stands on the stage and putting his drums in the cases, and you're like, buddy, get your stuff off the stage, or not, or not staging it ahead of time, and so they're getting up there and they're figuring out, what does Todd Zuckerman say? It's a game of millimeters, so figuring out where everything goes, and you're like, and again, no disrespect to anybody, but there is that little bit of gap, and that's kind of what this Genesis was like, to your point, a lot of the skills are the same. A lot of them are the same. Some of them are different, but some of it's just, you can find lessons on how to do a paradiddle. You can find lessons on how to do double bass or how to do flams correctly or whatever it is, but there's not a lot of lessons out there on how to be a professional, how to get a gig, how to keep a gig, and some of that etiquette. Talked about being on a bus with somebody for 6 months. Anthony's joke was, you don't want to be the dude leaving stinky socks everywhere, but stinky socks you could use it as a metaphor for all the other crap we're talking about. But like,
Sure.
it's one of those things that I think, when you're trying to break into a pro level gig, what are some mistakes that you see younger drummers making, or newer drummers in the industry making as they kind of transition into the pro level gigs?
I don't have empirical evidence where I can say like, oh, well, this one drummer I knew, Andy, when he got on a gig, he did this. Oh, like I don't really have that, right? I don't have that.
Freaking Andy.
But to your right. But to your point, everyone can play.
Yeah.
Everyone can play. That was one of the things that I learned when I moved out to LA. Like, you're not gonna. I mean, there are exceptions, and I don't mean to speak in overly absolute premises, but you're probably not gonna get the gig if you show up on an audition. Now, first of all, I don't even know that auditions even still happen. Like, a lot of the time, that's like, hey, send a link to this website URL, right?
That's what I did. Yep.
Sure, right?
Or an email or whatever.
But even in that case, it kind of still applies, sorta.
Yep.
But back in my day, Sonny, I came. You actually showed up to a place you actually played, right?
Yeah.
So everyone can play. If you show up and there's a dozen drummers auditioning for the gig, it will probably be things outside of your playing ability. Like, let's assume that out of 12 guys, let's just say,
Yeah.
12 drummers show up. Let's just say 7 suck. They haven't put in the time. They don't know the song well.
Yeah.
The fills they're playing are not only inaccurate but inappropriate, whatever. So those 7 get an immediate dismissal. Bye-bye. The remaining 5 could all do the gig. And could all do the gig well. So then it comes down to those certain things that maybe are happening outside the drum set, right? Are you a cool guy? Are you like, even in the rehearsal room, are you like easy to chat to, or are you like, I don't even know, right? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But to your point, yes, there are certain things that happen off the drum set that ultimately determine whether or not you get the gig and or whether or not you keep the gig.
Keep it.
Side note, one of the earliest gigs I did in LA was for an artist named Billy Myers. And it was literally one of the earliest gigs. One of the earliest auditions I ever got. I'd been here for a couple of months. So I go to the audition. Now, this has less application today because of electronics, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
But if I heard, oh, there's a loop on the verse, or oh, there's a tambourine, or whatever, I'm gonna, for me at the time, deep dive and try to find things that I think, oh, your average drummer's not going to pick up on this. Oh, there's a tambourine. Oh, but the hi-hat's going. Okay, well, I'm going to hold a tambourine. I'm going to play this. And that's going to be me on the verse. And then I'm going to throw it over my head and grab a stick for the chorus, and bam, I'm in the chorus. Right? Little things like that. So that audition happened, and there was a callback. And they called back two guys, myself and another drummer, another cat. And this other cat, who is a friend of mine, by the way, who's sadly no longer with us, but the thing that they remembered about him was, so the thing that they remembered about me was, oh, this dude, and he brought an auxiliary snare drum, and he played the verse with the tambourine, and he did, whatever. The thing they remembered about that cat, by the way, smoking drummer, right? But the thing they remembered, he counted off the songs like this. 1, 2, motherfucker said what? That's how he counted off the songs. And that's what they remembered. So I'm here with a certain degree of playing ability, and then my intangibles are, I brought this, I brought that, I played tambourine. He's here, same playing ability, full disclosure, maybe beyond, frankly, because he was an outstanding drummer. His name is Joey K. Joey K. And he would have been my age. So I don't know how much YouTube you can find of Joey K or not, but Cat was an outstanding drummer and a great person and all of that. But Joey was 1, 2, motherfucker say what? Right? It's just automatically funky, right?
Yeah.
Are you kidding me with that? Like, what are you trying to feel how funky? So only point being, nowadays, I don't know what those intangibles are. But if I'm trying to get a gig, I'm searching for them. Searching for them. What am I going to bring? What am I going to bring that maybe no one else thought of? Or what am I going to bring that maybe everyone else overlooked? Mm-hmm. Or, another buddy of mine would do auditions, and before the audition, none of this. Maybe I was about to say this stuff doesn't apply today, but maybe in the with the amount of parody going on, because everyone has all the same stuff, maybe it applies even more today. But before he would count up a song, hot sauce, literally, bottle on the friggin' shelf, riser, friggin' monitor, hot sauce. Yo, y'all ready to play? Yeah. All right. Glug, glug. Wow. Hot sauce. So, I mean, I sound so off base right now because I don't mean to suggest that all these other random things, like, I don't mean to suggest that there's not value, importance, profundity, like there's meaning in developing all your skills. Yeah. All those same skills, right? All the same skills that I worked on 40 some odd years ago and that drummers before me worked on 40 some odd plus years before that. Paradiddles and flams and good time and hope your gear sounds good and good technique and, all of that. All that stuff is still important. But a lot of the time, well, I won't say a lot of the time, but I will say some of the time, it can boil down to intangibles that are, you know what I'm saying? Like when you walk through the door, did you exude a cool vibe? Did you go like, what's up, man? Hey, good to meet you. Okay, cool, man. All right, cool. Or like, was it weird? I don't know. Yeah. But it's really hard to say, man. And like, if I ever had to be in a position again where I was auditioning for gigs again, I'd have to calibrate circa 2025 and figure out what those intangibles are today. Am I bringing hot sauce? Am I going 1, 2, motherfucker, say what?
Maybe both.
All of the above, No.
I don't blame you. Oh my gosh. I love that. I'm going to start doing that now.
Which one? Or both?
Both. You got to do both.
Do it.
Yeah.
Go for
You
it.
got to do 1, 2, motherfuckers say what, drink it,
What?
throw it, and then.
On the friggin'.
That's where balance really comes in. Hopefully you can stay on your...
I fully support all of that.
So one of the things that you put in the email, and I think we're at that section now, is we're at the gold star section.
Which
Oh,
the gold star.
Yeah, so you said,
Yes.
I get a gold star for any question you've never been asked before. But
Yes.
you didn't say it has to be drum specific.
No.
Okay,
The
so
world
I
is
am
your
gonna,
oyster.
Okay, I'm going to start with a drum specific one, just to
Okay.
ease us in.
Okay.
And then I'll get into some different stuff. But do you have a name for any of your drum sets?
I have a name for most of my drum sets.
Okay, then what's your favorite name for your favorite drum set? I know that's impossible to answer, but
Probably the one. No. It's actually pretty easy. Probably the one behind me, and that drum set is called California Sunset. Because if you've ever been to California and you've ever seen the sunset here, it fades from the dark purple as it starts getting dark
Yeah.
to the pink to the yellow. So that, and by the way, many of these are my wife's creation. Like, she came up with these. That one specifically. Sorry, my point is off. Oh, there we go.
you're fine.
That one, no shit. That one specifically.
There you
That one specifically. I was approaching a time when I was going to ask Pearl, like, for a kit for the main stage, and I was in the car with my wife, and I was like, "What should I do? What do you think would be a cool color scheme?" And she said, "Do you think Pearl could do like a 3-color fade?" And I said, "I don't know. I'll ask."
Yeah.
And that's what was born. And it's actually technically a 5-color fade because it's 3 colors, but then in between each color, there's the blend from one to the next, right? So technically it's a 5-color fade. So that's probably my favorite color scheme. Yeah. And it's called California Sunset.
California. Okay. I like that. So I don't have a name for my drums. Now I had, back when I was doing the death metal stuff, I had a similar size drum set to this one that I toured with, which is nuts. But it was blue, and it had two 22 by 20 inch kicks. So just ridiculous. And I used to call that kit Big Blue, because it was a big kit and it was blue. I need to come up with a name for this one. And actually, something special about this kit, because I was going to ask you about your snare drums as well, but I'll just give you a little nugget. This snare drum, so this is SJC kit. SJC, that made me a snare drum, has a badge for my mom, who passed away 3 years ago.
Oh, sorry.
Thank you. Yeah. So that snare drum is without a doubt my favorite snare drum. It's got a little. She passed from Alzheimer's. Has a little elephant on it. Has her birth year and her passing year, and it's purple for the Alzheimer's awareness. So
to me,
what's her
that's
name? What's her name?
Her name was Kathy.
Kathy. And does that snare drum have a name? Because I have snare drums that have names as well.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. I think it has to be Kathy. I think it has to be. It's official right now. That snare drum's name is Kathy, and I don't care if I ever switch companies, if I go to Pearl, if I go to DW, whoever I end up, if I end up going to a different company at some point, right? We all think about it at some point. That snare's never going anywhere. That thing is going to be on whatever kit I have for the rest of the time I play drums. She's the reason I play the instrument. So as soon as they told me they'd make a kit for me, I'm like, that has to be part of it.
Well done.
Thank you.
Well done.
Yeah. So
The story about your kit in the background. Tell me about your favorite snare drum then, or favorite snare drum name, maybe.
I'm from the South. And if you're from the South, invariably you have an Uncle Junebug. My first drum tech on The Voice was Steve-O. And Steve-O at the time was building snare drums. And he built me a 14 by 8. What is that thing? I think it's just maple. But it has like this beautiful sort of cherry finish and gold hardware. And I tend to play it whenever we play country tunes on the show. And so I call it Uncle Junebug. And by the way, there's the possibility that Uncle Junebug maybe likes to dip into the sauce from time to time, maybe with regularity. And so sometimes I call it drunk Uncle Junebug.
You're doing it real low.
But yeah, but Uncle Junebug. Exactly. But Uncle Junebug is probably my favorite name. I also have a snare drum that started out as a Rogers, what was that thing? Dynasonic. It started as a Rogers Dynasonic shell, but I didn't have the whole snare mechanism. Any of your drum nerd listeners who know that drum, right? You'll know it has the whole like mechanism. I found just the shell, like literally just the shell. Somewhere along the way, it got a gold triple flange bottom hoop, I think because I took it off of my Steve Ferroni Pearl signature drum and put it on it. And then one night I was playing a club on tour somewhere, and this is a 100% true story. Someone came up to me after our set, and they said, "Oh, is this yours?" And I was like, "I don't think so." And they're like, "Oh, the band that played here last night must have left it. You can have it." Well, it was a black die-cast hoop. And I have die-cast hoops on everything. I'm like, 90% of my snare drums have die-cast hoops. So it's like, perfect. So I married the Dynasonic shell with the gold triple flange from the Ferroni and the black die-cast from the Rando Club. Lugs, probably some Pure Sound snares on it. And I call it Frankenstein. So that's my Frankenstein snare because it was like a conglomeration of lots of rando parts, but it sounds awesome. So that's one of my favorites as well.
Nate, I know we went pretty far over, so to me that just speaks to the fact that you are a great representation of a professional, not just because of all what you've done and all you can do, but like you talked about at the very beginning, paying it forward, building the relationships. I feel like of all, and I don't mean to speak ill of anyone, but I'm like, I've just made a friend today. Like this conversation has been so much fun and interesting, and I feel like what started as an interview turned into just two guys talking about our passion for the same thing and how we approach it and how we think about it. And I'm grateful for the time, the opportunity, especially like you mentioned, you had rehearsals, you came straight in to do this, and I appreciate you. What I'll do, though, just to kind of close this up, is in the video, because this goes on Spotify as well, I just kind of edit it up. I will link everything, your channel, your Instagram, obviously the voice, everything, so people can follow you, make sure that they're staying in touch with what you've got going on. But I think what's most important is I think a lot of drummers, musicians, people who may not have anything to do with music but just want to chase their dream are going to get a lot out of this, and that's all I'm trying to do, is just share with people that anything's possible so long as you put in the work and you're a good person. Like, if you could do those things, you're going to be in a good spot. And I will say that you are an awesome man and a great friend, and I'm excited that we got a chance to talk and I got to learn a little bit more about you.
So earlier, and I don't remember if you were recording or not, I think you were, because you said one of the things that's important is just don't be a dick.
Yeah.
And literally, sometimes I will do something, whatever it is, right? I have a friend, April Samuels, and she does like a breast cancer drumathon annually. And I've had the privilege of being a part of that before. And where I've done, a couple of, little things here and there. And people will say, "Aw, it's so nice that you did that. Oh, that was so nice of you." And I just go, I don't think so. Like, not doing it would have made me an asshole. Like, hey, Nate, can you come do this event that I'm a part of? And I look at my calendar and I go, well, I'm not doing anything else, but, no.
I don't want to do it.
That would make me an asshole. And so I just try not to be an asshole. And I try not to ever take any inordinate amount of credit for doing something that you're supposed to do as a good person. You're supposed to do. My dad said to me the other day, Chris Rock has a joke. It's like it's a great joke, and I'm not going to do my Chris Rock impersonation because it doesn't exist. But his point was, I hate it when people brag about doing stuff they're supposed to do. See, I said I wasn't going to do it, and then there I go.
That was pretty good, actually.
But he said, people walk around and talk about, I takes care of my kids. I takes care of my kids. You're supposed to take care of your kids. So that's kind of how I look at a lot of stuff. It's like, these are just things that being a normal, trying to be a positive contributor, like when you message, hey man, can you be on this thing? And I want to share some information. And if you have some insight to share, that'd be great. Dude, of course. Like, duh. Like, Avi, right? So thank you for giving me the opportunity to come on. Thank you for dealing with my endless blathering. And I hope that you or anyone who happens to check this out might manage to gain any sort of useful information from any of all of this, hopefully, please.
Absolutely. No, and
maybe I've just set in motion a whole slew of a generation of drummers who are gonna go, 1, 2, motherfucker, say what? Maybe that's my contribution to drumming kind. Maybe that's my contribution right there. And if it is, Joey K would be proud.
That's right.
He would appreciate that.
And as we started this, though, the drummer world is counting on you.
So here it is.
Well, there we go. Well, I just did it. So now.
But no, I genuinely feel like I made a new friend today, and I really appreciate it. I'm absolutely confident anybody who listens to this is going to have a good time. They're going to enjoy it like we did, and they're going to learn a lot. So I do think we probably need to have a part 2 at some point in the future, just to talk about Berkeley and more stuff, which we can figure that out at a later time. But for now,
absolutely,
I just want to say thank you. Seriously, it's been, we've been on the phone now for about 2 hours, and it has not felt like it. I'm having such a good time. So you've been very generous, and I appreciate it.
Likewise, Kyle. Pleasure is mine, my brother.
Okay, I will talk to you soon, I promise.
Yes, sir. Be good.
You too, Nate. See ya.